Now there was a certain man of Ramathaim Zophim in the hill country of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, the son of Jehoram, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zeph, an Ephraimite. He had two wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other was Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. The man went up out of his city from year to worship and to sacrifice to Yahweh of armies in Shiloh. The two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, priests to Yahweh, were there. When the day came that Elkanah sacrificed, he gave portions to Peninnah his wife, and to all her sons and her daughters, but he gave a double portion to Hannah, for he loved Hannah, but Yahweh had shut up her womb. Her rival provoked her severely to irritate her, because Yahweh had shut up her womb. So year by year, when she went up to Yahweh's house, her rival provoked her. Therefore she wept and didn't eat. Elkanah, her husband, said to her, "Hannah, why do you weep? Why don't you eat? Why is your heart grieved? Am I not better to you than 10 sons?" So Hannah rose up after they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh. Now Eli the priest was sitting by his seat in the doorpost of Yahweh's temple. She was in bitterness of soul and prayed to Yahweh, weeping bitterly. She vowed a vow and said, "Yahweh of armies, if you will indeed look at the affliction of your servant and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give your servant a boy, then I will give him to Yahweh for all the days of his life, and no razor shall come on his head." As she continued praying before Yahweh, Eli saw her mouth. Now Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli thought she was drunk. Eli said to her, "How long will you be drunk? Get rid of your wine." Hannah answered, "No, my lord, I am a woman of sorrowful spirit. I have not been drinking wine or strong drink, but I poured out my soul before Yahweh. Don't consider your servant a wicked woman, for I haven't been speaking out of the abundance of my complaint and my provocation." Then Eli answered, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant your petition that you have asked of him." She said, "Let your servant find favor in your sight." So the woman went on her way and ate, and her facial expression wasn't sad anymore. They rose up in the morning early and worshipped Yahweh, then returned and came to the house at Ramah. Then Elkanah knew Hannah his wife, and Yahweh remembered her. When the time had come, Hannah conceived and bore a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, "Because I have asked him of Yahweh." The man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer to Yahweh the yearly sacrifice and his vow. But Hannah didn't go up, for she said to her husband, "Not until the child is weaned. Then I will bring him, that he may appear before Yahweh and stay there forever." Elkanah, her husband, said to her, "Do what seems good to you. Wait until you have weaned him. Only may Yahweh establish his word." So the woman waited and nursed her son until she weaned him. When she had weaned him, she took him up with her, with 3 bulls and 1 ephah of meal, and a container of wine, and brought him to Yahweh's house in Shiloh. The child was young. They killed the bull and brought the child to Eli. She said, "Oh, my lord, as your soul lives, my lord, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to Yahweh. I prayed for this child, and Yahweh has given me my petition which I asked of him. Therefore, I have also given him to Yahweh. As long as he lives, he is given to Yahweh." He worshipped Yahweh there. Hannah prayed and said, "My heart exults in Yahweh. My horn is exalted in Yahweh. My mouth is enlarged over my enemies, because I rejoice in your salvation. There is no one as holy as Yahweh, for there is none beside you. nor is there any rock like our God. Don't keep talking so exceedingly proudly. Don't let arrogance come out of your mouth, for Yahweh is a God of knowledge. By him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty men are broken. Those who stumbled are armies with strength. Those who were full have hired themselves out for bread. Those who were hungry are satisfied. Yes, the barren has borne 7. She who has many children languishes. Yahweh kills and makes alive. He brings down to Sheol and brings up. Yahweh makes poor and makes rich. He brings low, he also lifts up. He raises up the poor out of the dust. He lifts up the needy from the dunghill to make them sit with princes and inherit the throne of glory. For the pillars of the earth are Yahweh's. He has set the world on them. He will keep the feet of his holy ones, but the wicked will be put to silence in darkness, for no man will prevail by strength. Those who strive with Yahweh shall be broken to pieces. He will thunder against them in the sky. Yahweh will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. Elkanah went to Ramah to his house. The child served Yahweh before Eli the priest. Now the sons of Eli were wicked men. They didn't know Yahweh. The custom of the priests with the people was that when any of them offered a sacrifice, the priest's servant came while the meat was boiling, with a fork of 3 teeth in his hand, and he stabbed it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot. The priest took all that the fork brought up for himself. They did this to all the Israelites who came there to Shiloh. Yes, before they burnt the fat, the priest's servant came up and said to the man who sacrificed, "Give meat to roast for the priest, for he will not accept boiled meat from you raw." If the man said to him, "Let the fat first be burned, then take as much as your soul desires," then he would say, "No, but you shall give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force." The sin of the young men was very great before Yahweh, for the men despised Yahweh's offering. But Samuel ministered before Yahweh, being a child clothed with a linen ephod. Moreover, his mother made him a little robe, and brought it to him from year to year, when she came up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. Eli blessed Elkanah and his wife, and said, "May Yahweh give your offspring from this woman for the petition which was asked of Yahweh." Then they went to their own home. Yahweh visited Hannah, and she conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters. The child Samuel grew before Yahweh. Now Eli was very old, and he heard all that his sons did in all Israel, and how they slept with the women who served at the door of the tent of meeting. He said to them, "Why do you do such things? For I hear of your evil dealings from all these people. No, my sons, for it is not a good report that I hear. You make Yahweh's people disobey. If one man sins against another, God will judge him. But if a man sins against Yahweh, who will intercede for him?" Notwithstanding, they didn't listen to the voice of their father, because Yahweh intended to kill them. The child Samuel grew on and increased in favor both with Yahweh and also with men. A man of God came to Eli and said, "Yahweh says, did I reveal myself to the house of your father when they were in Egypt in bondage to Pharaoh's house? Didn't I choose him out of the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to go up to my altar, to burn incense, to wear an ephod before me? Didn't I give to the house of your father all the offerings of the children of Israel made by fire? Why do you kick at my sacrifice and at my offering, which I have commanded in my habitation, and honor your sons above me, to make yourselves fat with the best offerings of all the offerings of Israel my people? Therefore Yahweh the God of Israel says, I said indeed that your house and the house of your father should walk before me forever. But now Yahweh says, Far be it from me. For those who honor me I will honor, and those who despise me will be cursed. Behold, the days come that I will cut off your arm and the arm of your father's house, that it will not be an old man in your house. You will see the affliction of my habitation in all the wealth which I will give Israel. There shall not be an old man in your house forever. The man of yours, whom I don't cut off from my altar, will consume your eyes and grieve your heart. All the increase of your house will die in the flower of their age. This will be a sign to you that will come on your 2 sons, on Hophni and Phinehas. In one day they will both die. I will raise up a faithful priest for myself, who will do according to that which is in my heart and in my mind. I will build him a sure house. He will walk before my anointed forever. It will happen that everyone who is left in your house will come and bow down to him for a piece of silver and a loaf of bread, and will say, Please put me into one of the priest's offices, that I may eat a morsel of bread. The child Samuel ministered to Yahweh before Eli. Yahweh's word was rare in those days. There were not many visions then. At that time, when Eli was laid down to his place, now his eyes had begun to grow dim so that he couldn't see, and God's lamp had not yet gone out, and Samuel had laid down in Yahweh's temple, where God's ark was. Yahweh called Samuel. Yahweh called Samuel. He said, Here am I. He ran to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. He said, I didn't call. Lay down again. He went and lay down. Yahweh called yet again, Samuel. Samuel arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. He answered, I didn't call, my son. Lie down again. Now Samuel didn't yet know Yahweh, neither was Yahweh's word yet revealed to him. Yahweh called Samuel again the 3rd time. He arose and went to Eli and said, Here I am, for you called me. Eli perceived that Yahweh had called the child. Therefore Eli said to Samuel, Go lie down. It shall be, if he calls you, that you shall say, Speak, Yahweh, for your servant hears. So Samuel went and lay down in his place. Yahweh came and stood and called as at other times, Samuel, Samuel. Then Samuel said, Speak, for your servant hears. Yahweh said to Samuel, Behold, I will do a thing in Israel at which both the ears of everyone who hears it will tingle. In that day I will perform against Eli all that I have spoken concerning his house, from the beginning even to the end. For I have told him that I will judge his house forever for the iniquity which he knew, because his sons brought a curse on themselves, and he didn't restrain them. Therefore I have sworn to the house of Eli that the iniquity of Eli's house shall not be removed with sacrifice or offering forever. Samuel lay until morning, and opened the doors of Yahweh's house. Samuel was afraid to show Eli the vision. Then Eli called Samuel and said, Samuel, my son. He said, Here I am. He said, What is the thing that he has spoken to you? Please don't hide it from me. God do so to you, and more, if you hide any of the things from me, of the things that he spoke to you. Samuel told him every bit and hid nothing from him. He said, It is Yahweh. Let him do what seems good to him. Samuel grew, and Yahweh was with him, and let none of his words fall to the ground. All Israel, from Dan even to Beersheba, knew that Samuel was established to be a prophet of Yahweh. Yahweh appeared again in Shiloh, for Yahweh revealed himself to Samuel in Shiloh by Yahweh's word. The word of Samuel came to all Israel. Now Israel went out again against the Philistines to battle, and encamped beside Ebenezer, and the Philistines encamped in Aphekah. The Philistines put themselves in array against Israel when they joined battle. Israel was defeated by the Philistines, who killed about 4,000 men of the army in the field. When the people had come into the camp, the elders of Israel said, "Why has Yahweh defeated us today before the Philistines? Let's get the ark of Yahweh's covenant out of Shiloh and bring it to us, that it may come among us and save us out of the hand of our enemies." So the people sent to Shiloh, and they brought from there the ark of the covenant of Yahweh of armies, who sits above the cherubim, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were there in the ark of the covenant of God. When the ark of Yahweh's covenant came into the camp, all Israel shouted with a great shout, so that the earth resounded. When the Philistines heard the noise of the shout, they said, "What does the noise of the great shout of the camp of the Hebrews mean?" They understood that Yahweh's ark had come into the camp. The Philistines were afraid, for they said, "God has come into the camp." They said, "Woe to us, for there has not been such a thing before. Woe to us! Who shall deliver us out of the hand of these mighty gods? These are the gods that struck the Egyptians with all kinds of plagues in the wilderness. Be strong and behave like men, O you Philistines, that you not be servants to the Hebrews as they have been to you. Strengthen yourselves like men and fight." The Philistines fought, and Israel was defeated, and each man fled to his tent. There was a very great slaughter, for 30,000 footmen of Israel fell. God's ark was taken, and the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, were slain. A man of Benjamin ran out of the army and came to Shiloh the same day, with his clothes torn and with dirt on his head. When he came, behold, Eli was sitting on his seat by the road watching, for his heart trembled for God's ark. When the man came into the city and told about it, all the city cried out. When Eli heard the noise of the crying, he said, "What does the noise of this tumult mean?" The man hurried and came and told Eli. Now Eli was 98 years old. His eyes were set so that he could not see. The man said to Eli, "I am he who came out of the army, and I fled today out of the army." He said, "How did the matter go, my son?" He who brought the news answered, "Israel has fled before the Philistines, and there has been also a great slaughter among the people. Your two sons also, Hophni and Phinehas, are dead, and God's ark has been captured." When he made mention of God's ark, Eli fell from off his seat backward by the side of the gate, and his neck broke, and he died, for he was an old man and heavy. He had judged Israel 40 years. His daughter-in-law, Phinehas's wife, was with child near to giving birth, when she heard the news that God's ark was taken, and that her father-in-law and her husband were dead. She bowed herself and gave birth, for her pains came on her. About the time of her death, the women who stood by her said, "Don't be afraid, for you have given birth to a son." But she didn't answer, neither did she regard it. She named the child Ichabod, saying, "The glory has departed from Israel," because God's ark was taken, and because her father-in-law and her husband. She said, "The glory has departed from Israel, for God's ark has been taken." Now the Philistines had taken God's ark, and they brought it from Ebenezer to Ashdod. The Philistines took God's ark and brought it near to the house of Dagon, and set it by Dagon. When the people of Ashdod arose early the next day, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face to the ground before Yahweh's ark. They took Dagon and set him in his place again. When they arose early the following morning, behold, Dagon had fallen on his face before Yahweh's ark. And the head of Dagon and both the palms of his hand were cut off on the threshold. Only Dagon's torso was intact. Therefore neither the priests of Dagon nor any who came into Dagon's house step on the threshold of Dagon in Ashdod to this day. But Yahweh's hand was heavy on the people of Ashdod, and he destroyed them and struck them with tumors, even Ashdod and its borders. When the men of Ashdod saw that it was so, they said, "The ark of God of Israel shall not stay with us, for his hand is severe on us, and on Dagon our God." They sent therefore and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and said, "What shall we do with the ark of God of Israel?" They answered, "Let the ark of the God of Israel be carried over to Gath." They carried the ark of God of Israel there. It was so that after they had carried it there, Yahweh's hand was against the city with very great confusion, and he struck the men of the city, both small and great, so that tumors broke out on them. So they set God's ark to Ekron. As God's ark came to Ekron, the Ekronites cried out, saying, "They have brought the ark of the God of Israel to here, to kill us and our people." They sent therefore and gathered together all the lords of the Philistines, and said, "Send the ark of God of Israel away. Let it go again to its own place, that it not kill us and our people." For there was a deadly panic throughout all the city. The hand of God was very heavy there. The men who didn't die were struck with tumors, and the cry of the city went up to heaven. Yahweh's ark was in the country of the Philistines 7 months. The Philistines called for the priests and the diviners, saying, "What shall we do with Yahweh's ark? Show us how we should send it to this place." They said, "If you send away the ark of God of Israel, don't send it empty, but by all means return a trespass offering to them. Then you will be healed, and it will be known to you why his hand is not removed from you." Then they said, What should the trespass offering be which we should return to him?" They said, 5 golden tumors and 5 golden mice, for the number of lords of the Philistines. For one plague was on you all, and on your lords. Therefore you should make images of your tumors and images of your mice, and mar that land, and you should give glory to the God of Israel. Perhaps he will release his hand from you, from your gods, and from your land. Why then do you harden your hearts, as the Egyptians and Pharaoh hardened their hearts? Where he had worked wonderfully among them, didn't they let the people go, and they departed? Now therefore take and prepare yourselves a new cart and 2 milk cows on which there has come no yoke, and tie the cows to the cart, and bring their calves home from them, and take Yahweh's ark and lay it on the cart. Put the jewels of gold which you return him from a trespass offering, in a box by its side, and send it away that it may go. Behold, if it goes up by the way of its own border to Beth Shemesh, then he has done us this great evil. But if not, then we shall know that it is not his hand that struck us, it was a chance that happened to us." The men did so, and took 2 milk cows and tied them to the cart, and shut their calves at home. They put Yahweh's ark to the cart, and the box with the golden mice and the images of the tumors. The cows took the straight way by the way of Beth Shemesh. They went along the highway, lowing as they went, and didn't turn away to the right hand or to the left. And the lords of the Philistines went after them to the border of Beth Shemesh. The people of Beth Shemesh were reaping their wheat harvest in the valley, and they lifted up their eyes and saw the ark, and rejoiced to see it. The cart came into the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh, and stood there where it was a great stone. Then they split the wood of the cart, and offered up the cows for a burnt offering to Yahweh. The Levites took down Yahweh's ark and the box that was with it, in which the jewels of gold were, and put them on the great stone. And the men of Beth Shemesh offered burnt offerings, and sacrificed sacrifices the same day to Yahweh. When the 5 lords of the Philistines had seen it, they returned to Ekron the same day. These are the golden tumors which the Philistines returned for a trespass offering to Yahweh. For Ashdod 1, for Gaza 1, for Ashkelon 1, for Gath 1, for Ekron 1, and golden mice according to the number of all the cities of the Philistines belonging to the 5 lords, both of fortified cities and of country villages, even to the great stone on which they set down Yahweh's ark. That stone remains to this day in the field of Joshua of Beth Shemesh. He struck the men of Beth Shemesh because they had looked into Yahweh's ark. He struck 50,070 of the men. Then the people mourned because Yahweh had struck the people with a great slaughter. The men of Beth Shemesh said, "Who is able to stand before Yahweh, this holy God? To whom shall he go up from us?" They sent messengers to the inhabitants of Kiriath Jearim, saying, "The Philistines have brought back Yahweh's ark. Come down and bring it up to yourselves." The men of Kiriath Jearim came and took Yahweh's ark, and brought it into Abinadab's house on the hill, and consecrated Eleazar his son to keep Yahweh's ark. From the day that the ark stayed in Kiriath Jearim, the time was long, for it was 20 years, and all the house of Israel lamented after Yahweh. Samuel spoke to all the house of Israel, saying, "If you are returning to Yahweh with all your heart, then put away the foreign gods and the Ashtaroth from among you, and direct your hearts to Yahweh, and serve him only, and he will deliver you out of the hand of the Philistines." Then the children of Israel removed the Baals and the Ashtaroth, and served Yahweh only. Samuel said, "Gather all Israel to Mizpah, and I will pray to Yahweh for you." They gathered together to Mizpah, and drew water and poured it out before Yahweh, and fasted on that day, and said there, "We have sinned against Yahweh." Samuel judged the children of Israel in Mizpah. When the Philistines heard that the children of Israel were gathered together at Mizpah, the lords of the Philistines went up against Israel. When the children of Israel heard it, they were afraid of the Philistines. The children of Israel said to Samuel, "Don't stop crying to Yahweh our God for us, that he will save us out of the hand of the Philistines." Samuel took a suckling lamb and offered it for a whole burnt offering to Yahweh. Samuel cried to Yahweh for Israel, and Yahweh answered him. As Samuel was offering up the burnt offering, the Philistines came near to battle against Israel. But Yahweh thundered with a great thunder on that day on the Philistines, and confused them, and they were struck down before Israel. The men of Israel went out of Mizpah, and pursued the Philistines, and struck them until they came under Beth-kar. Then Samuel took a stone and set it between Mizpah and Shen, and called its name Ebenezer, saying, "Yahweh helped us until now." So the Philistines were subdued, and they stopped coming within the border of Israel. Yahweh's hand was against the Philistines all the days of Samuel. The cities which the Philistines had taken from Israel were restored to Israel, from Ekron even to Gath, and Israel recovered its border out of the hands of the Philistines. There was peace between Israel and the Amorites. Samuel judged Israel all the days of his life. He went from year to year in a circuit to Bethel, Gilgal, and Mizpah, and he judged Israel in those places. His return was to Ramah, for his house was there, and he judged Israel there, and he built an altar to Yahweh there. When Samuel was old, he made his sons judges over Israel. Now the name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second Abijah. They were judges in Beersheba. His sons didn't walk in his ways, but turned away after dishonest gain, took bribes, and perverted justice. Then all the elders of Israel gathered themselves together and came to Samuel to Ramah. They said to him, "Behold, you are old, and your sons don't walk in your ways. Now make us a king to judge us like all the nations." But the thing displeased Samuel when they said, "Give us a king to judge us." Samuel prayed to Yahweh. Yahweh said to Samuel, "Listen to the voice of the people in all that they tell you, for they have not rejected you, but they have rejected me as the king over them. According to all the works which they have done since the day that I brought them up out of Egypt, even to this day, in that they have forsaken me and served other gods, so they also do to you. Now therefore listen to their voice. However, you shall protest solemnly to them, and shall show them the way of the king who will reign over them." Samuel told all Yahweh's words to the people who asked them for a king. He said, "This will be the way of the king who shall reign over you. He will take your sons and appoint them as his servants, for his chariots and to be his horsemen, and they will run before his chariots. He will appoint them to him for captains of thousands and captains of fifties, and he will assign some to the plough his ground and to reap his harvest, and to make his instruments of war and the instruments of his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers, to be cooks and to be bakers. He will take your fields, your vineyards, and your olive groves, even your best, and give them to his servants. He will take 1/10 of your seed and of all your vineyards, and give it to his officers and to his servants. He will take your male servants, your female servants, your best young men and your donkeys, and assign them to his own work. He will take 1/10 of your flocks, and you will be his servants. You will cry out in that day because of your king, whom you will have chosen for yourselves, and Yahweh will not answer you in that day." But the people refused to listen to the voice of Samuel, and they said, "No, but we will have a king over us, that we may be like the nations, and that our king may judge us and go out before us and fight our battles." Samuel heard all the words of the people, and he rehearsed them in the ears of Yahweh. Yahweh said to Samuel, "Listen to their voice, and make them a king." Samuel said to the men of Israel, "Everyone go to your own city."